Hi class, happy Wednesday. I wanted to make a video just reminding students about the annotated bibliography that's due tonight, Wednesday, February 26th. So, and this is your attendance assignment for the week. So I gave everybody, feedback on their worksheet 3, which was their annotated bibliography worksheet. Everybody who had submitted it by yesterday on Tuesday. So, and of course, right now as I'm making this video at 8:45 in the morning on Wednesday, we are having a Blackboard access issue, really of the portal issue. So I'm aware of that, and if once that gets resolved and I have access to our Blackboard again, I will go and see who has belatedly turned in that worksheet 3 and give advice. So the main thing that I give a lot of people questions to ask themselves about how they're going to use their sources. Remember, these sources, these two sources that you're going to use, they should be either from my list of sources, which I had the folder with a minimum of 5 sources for each of the 5 different texts, the 4 stories in the 1 poem. Some of them had more. Or if you wanted to seek out a credible source on your own, you could do that, but it can't be things like Litbug or anything that is kind of in the vein of Cliff Notes type thing. Those websites are not scholarly, credible sources. They are basically kind of doing your work for you. They're meant as study guides more than anything. So if that's what you used, I did tell you, and your points were reduced, and I did note that I would be happy to regrade that worksheet once you provided replacement sources. So remember, you're going to use these 2 sources to strengthen your own original argument. The focus of the paper, the analysis paper, is your analysis based on your thesis statement. So, for example, and your thesis statement is going to be, you're going to place it, let me highlight this, on your annotated bibliography. So that'll be the first thing that I read when I open up your annotated bibliography is your thesis statement. Your thesis statement should name check your 3 devices. It should name check the author, preferably the story itself. So in this thesis statement, it's got a little bit of weakness. Preferably, we should have said in Bradbury's The Veldt critiques humanity's over-reliance. So my preference would be to have something along the lines of this. Let me put it in red. That's why I'm doing this video, because this is a student's paper, and every none of these are perfect, and I like to show you the paper with the flaws, because I think that's important for you to learn, and that's why I'm doing this video. So that is how I would suggest you make your thesis statement. So now you've got your primary source. That's the next thing that you have on your annotated bibliography. Note my formatting. This is the proper formatting. You've got your 1-inch margins along here, and then using hanging indent, double spaced everywhere. You want to make sure that you click open this extra formatting panel and make sure this section here, spacing before and after, this is before and after when you hit the return or the enter key, that they're both zeroed out and that it's double spacing. Okay. So hanging indent, primary source. Do not need to annotate this. So then you, again, against the 1-inch margin, you've got secondary sources. Now you've got your 2 sources. These should be alphabetized according to whatever name is first, obviously. So here we've got Joyce Hart. And here is the student's citation on the Veldt, or this Joyce Hart article, critical essay on the Veldt, in proper MLA format. Then, again, note it's aligned with the hanging indent, so it's now 1.5 inches, and that is what you should do. So then you're going to have your summary. Here, I'm going to make it in red so we can see this better. So you're going to have your summary. Your summary will be anywhere from 3, but probably more like 5 to 7 sentences. How is this article relevant to your interpretation? What does Hart say about your theme? Okay. And here you're going to evaluate your source. How is it credible? What is this author known for? What is the journal known for? Is it scholarly? Now, there are a few sources that I put on my list that I realize aren't fully scholarly sources. And in my feedback on worksheet 3, I tell you that you need to, in your evaluation, make the reader aware that you are aware these sources have limitations, and that's fine. We have to work with what we have in terms of our library and what it's got, and there are limitations, especially for the Bradbury story, The Pedestrian, and the Vonnegut To Be or Not to Be. So if you used one of the sources that are not 100% credible, I did note that on your feedback on worksheet 3, and make that note in your evaluation. That's all you need to do. And then finally, you've got your reflection paragraph here. And again, note that everything is, at this point, is aligned with the hanging indent, right? So we're tabbed in. We're now 1.5 inches. Here you're going to say, how is this analysis from Hart similar to what you have to say in terms of the use of literary devices, and maybe how is it different? Okay, and how do you plan to use it in your paper? All right, so you can see the student used 4 or 5 sentences for this. And then you'll do the same thing with your second source, right? Here is that particular citation. And then we have summary, evaluation, and look how long this summary is. I would say it's a little long, but maybe this article had a lot to say. And then evaluation. So that is your annotated bibliography. You want to read my comments on worksheet 3, and then take your work from the worksheet and translate it into this annotated bibliography. This should be pretty straightforward. All right, that's due tonight. So let me not save this. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is the sample essay that I have for you, and I have this at your Monday announcement. Hopefully Blackboard will be the portal will be fixed soon. Okay, so this is an essay a student of mine did last spring, an online student just like you. We were doing, instead of The Pedestrian, we were doing the Veldt. So the student here has a thesis statement. This is the thesis that is at the annotated bibliography. Remember what I said about ideally you would have this is the, let me go ahead and fix that. Ideally you would have Ray Bradbury's The Veldt critiques humanities over reliance. So Now, we've got 3 devices: symbolism, irony, and imagery. So what I did is I actually annotated this student's paper that I gave to you as the sample paper, and it is a good paper. It has some flaws, and I want to go over those flaws with you so that you can improve your own paper. All right, so the first flaw that I pointed out, and I have it highlighted, bolded, you have it bolded in your paper. Here's where the student discusses the critical essay by Joyce Hart. You remember that from the annotated bibliography we just looked at. So the student says Joyce Hart argues in her analysis that Bradbury critiques the consequences of allowing technology to dominate human lives, showing how the growing detachment from reality makes them view their parents as obstacles rather than caregivers. All right, remember what the students said they're writing on. The humanity's over-reliance on technology. That's what Bradbury is critiquing. Okay, so the student says here that symbolism is used to reveal the dangerous power of technological progress. And then the student discusses that use of how the nursery symbolizes it, and gives a quote, and then explains the quote. Okay, so all this is good. Now, when the student pulls in Hart's article, what would be better here is if the student looked specifically at any discussion that the critic, Hart, has about Bradbury's use of the nursery as symbolic, or anything in there about symbolism more explicitly. The student kind of doesn't really talk about symbolism here, and that's a problem. So this is all good, but it doesn't really talk about symbolism, if that makes sense. Okay. Same thing for this second discussion of the Hart article. Hart emphasizes that the illusion of control the parents believe they have is shattered by the children's growing dependency on the nursery. So we have the nursery brought in, but how does Hart discuss symbolism specifically? Okay, what does this have to do with the students' discussion of symbolism to reveal humanity's over-reliance on technology? Okay, so it would have been better if the student had really connected what Hart had to say to this paragraph on symbolism. Okay, so that needs fixing. And the student concludes this paragraph with the sentence, the nursery, rather than being a mere entertainment device, replaces parental control and emotional connection. I assume the student means is symbolic of those things, but the student needs to return to that device of symbolism here at the end and say, how does Hart's analysis connect to their own? Remind the reader that symbolism in the form of nursery is used, and then transition to irony. Okay, so the original paper is fine, but it's missing some things. Okay, and I'm going to actually post my annotations at this Wednesday announcement along with this video so you can read the kind of questions or suggestions that I have to make this a better paper. Same thing happens in the paragraph on irony. So here the student says, oh, irony plays a crucial role in exposing the unintended consequences of technological dependence. That is the theme, right? So, good. Then the student goes and explains how that works, has a quote, and then explains the quote, and then shifts into the critics, which is what they should be doing. But, just as in the last paragraph, the student needs to connect this discussion of So and Lee's article back to irony. They don't do that, okay? They do maybe a little bit in this paragraph, or this couple of sentences right here, but it's not enough, okay? Same thing with this next little bit where the student discusses this article by these two people. Be more explicit in connecting this summary of their argument as a discussion of irony in the story. Okay? Just as it's also not clear whether these two sentences, is this still talking about the article, or is this the student's original analysis? It's not clear, as you can see when you read this on your own. And then finally, there lacks a transition to the third element of imagery. Okay, the imagery paragraph is a little bit better in some way. So again, initial sentence says how imagery works to reveal the theme. Talks about the imagery specifically in the story by giving a quote. Explains the quote in the story. This is the student's work. And then here returns to the critical article. This one is not great. There needs to be a real connection between imagery and this immersion into or the blurred boundaries of illusion and reality. How does that work? But this is better. This is what you should be doing right here. Hart also expands on this idea, emphasizing that Bradbury's use of imagery, vivid and immersive imagery, serves as a way to highlight the dangers of virtual escapism. This is what you're looking for right here. Okay? All of your discussions of the articles should be like this. All right. And again, better signal that you're going back to your original analysis, because it kind of feels like you're still talking about Hart. Okay. Conclusion is fine. And then, of course, on the works cited, it's all the stuff that was on your annotated bibliography minus the annotations. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I will post this at your Wednesday announcement when we get Blackboard up and running. So let me go ahead and X out of this. Let me save it like this, though. And I want to show you the final bit, which is the outlining worksheet. So what you have due on Sunday is your essay outlining worksheet. And for students who are new at writing analysis essays, this worksheet will really walk you through this essay. The minimum, if you do fill this worksheet out with all the good details and all the quotes that you want to use, you will have your essay half written. Okay? And it prompts you through every single paragraph. So for your introduction paragraph, you need to hook your reader with something that I would say, so all of your stories, if you're doing the short stories, are dystopian fiction. So that's something to keep in mind. You can, just like in the student essay, let me go back to it, let me pull it back up. Okay. So if we go back to our student essay and look to see how this student hooked the reader. Okay. So in the 1950s, the rapid rise of consumer culture and home automation sparked anxieties about the role of technology in daily life. Okay, remember what this thesis statement, the theme the student says is over-reliance on technology. So this hook sets this kind of this anxiety in historical perspective, because the story was published in 1950. So you want to do something similar to this for your hook. And if you note, this next sentence gives a little background on the publication of the story. So you want to name it, you want to name when it was published, name the author, name the story. Okay. So that's this right here. Then you want to give a very short plot summary. Back when you were doing your worksheet 2, wherein you had to do plot summary, or maybe that was worksheet 1. I don't remember which worksheet it was. I think it might have been your second worksheet, where you had to summarize the plot. Remember I prompted most of y'all to say, okay, how does that plot relate to the theme? You want to summarize just as much as important for the reader to know about your analysis. Okay, you don't need to give me the blow by blow. And I know it's going to be hard for, especially like To Be or Not to Be, for whatever reason that story is hard for students to summarize. But you want this plot summary to be very short. Okay, so if you note right here, this is the plot summary. Okay, this sort of transition to the plot summary. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences. That is pretty ideal. About 4 or 5 sentences, no more than 5 for plot summary. Okay. Then you're going to sort of move into your thesis statement and then finally give your thesis statement that you've been working on. All right. And then obviously paragraph 1 is going to be on your first literary device. You'll open it up. You'll say how symbolism works in the lottery. Shirley Jackson uses symbolism in the lottery in order to convey the message of whatever. Okay. Then explain about the black box, for example. So how specifically what symbol is used. Next, pull a quote, including the citation, where like what page number. Make sure you let me know this is from Jackson's story, The Lottery. Pull that quote that explains what you talked about. So some quote about the black box, and then explain that quote. Why was it important? How is it revealing? Next, you want to move into trying to find criticism that relates to your first element. Introduce their argument, explain how it supports your argument, close, transition to the next paragraph. Okay? Same thing for the next, and the next, and then finally the conclusion. Okay? So this outline walks you through the essay just as it does with like this student. And again, go and read this essay, look at my annotations in the italicized red. Think about that when you're writing or outlining your paper. Okay? All right. I know this was a long video, but I think it's important.